Hey guys, it's Brooke from the Junk Parlor. Hopefully it is not too loud in here. You can hear the rain coming down in the Morton building. And I obviously don't have the best lighting in here. I'm kind of stuck over in a corner, but I'm trying to get it so you can see what I'm doing. I am working on an antique sign that I had shared with you a while back, and everybody was like, well, I like it how it is. I totally like it how it is as well, but I try to put it at the shop outside so people know that I sell antiques, because my name, the Junk Parlor, some people do not associate the word junk with antiques. So I try to have this sign out there. It's been out there probably a couple of years now, and so weather has done its toll because I did not seal it at all. So I'm just going to show you how I made the sign and how I make signs. A lot of people do them a lot of different ways. I mean, you have the Simply Saids, your Crickets, all of that kind of stuff. I kind of do it old school, and so I'm going to show you a way that I do a lot of signs, not how I'm going to do this one, but just kind of walk you through it. So I will just take from a printer and print a font, a word. This is a stencil that I used for a coffee sign, and all I did was print it off, and then you can see how I've went over it with pencil. So all I did was lay this down on a board, preferably one that's smooth, not one with chippy paint like I'm going to work on today. And then all you do is just take a pencil, which my pencil has walked away, but you would take a pencil, I wouldn't use a push one, and then you just press hard over the outline with your pencil, and then it will leave an indentation on that new smooth flat wood, and basically makes a groove for the paint to go into as your border. And so once you've traced this whole letter out, or your whole word out, then you're going to go back and you can use some kind of paint. Like I just normally use an acrylic paint. I think you can get this at Walmart, pretty much everywhere, and paint it. You could also take something like this, press really firmly to trace it onto the wood, and then use just a magic marker to trace it for yourself to make that black outline. And you could use that for these skinnier parts, and then paint to fill in. So that is an option as well. And then you can go back with like a chalk pen and highlight areas if you want to show some contrast. So lots of options, and I will just save it and use it over and over again. When I first started doing this, I did probably a lot more projects and a lot more crafts, and well, what I would call a craft, and did that. So what I am doing for this antique sign is I just have some stencils. You can pick these up at the thrift store when I'm out on a pick and somebody has a bunch of these from their craft projects. I will just kind of hoard them and keep them so that I have them in different sizes. I typically don't use it as a stencil in the sense that I will fill in here where you know, the stencil part is, where it shows where it is evident that it's a stencil. So I will fill that in so you can't tell so much. So I'm going to turn the camera down here so you're really going to just see the board. So you can see that the letter A is pretty much completely gone. And that's just because of weather. So this was a white chippy board from a shed. And when I did it the first time, I just traced the letter, painted it in black, and then I set it outside of the shop. Then just as weather happens, it will start flaking off the old paint and give you this awesome effect. So I didn't sand it or distress it or anything when I very first did it. I just let the weather do its job, okay? And that's what I'm going to do this time as well. So I am going to repaint all of the letters, which I've already done the bottom half. and then let the weather do its thing, because I don't want to sand the white paint, chippy paint at all, because I want it to flake up. And even on the parts that I've already painted the letters for this time, I know that setting it outside probably for one day, it's already going to start flaking off, because just me painting it, some of the paint was wanting to flake off, but I want that because that's going to give it the aged look. So there's enough of the old A here that I'm just going to try and match it up. And before, when I did it the first time, I would obviously have to use a little bit of math, figure out how many letters I had, how long my board was, how much space I needed to leave between the letters. And you can kind of see that I probably cheated with my stencil. So I pretty much had my stencil, and then I would have taken my next letter in. Luckily, it was on a different sheet, and I would just line it up here, kind of line it up to the A, and then I just stacked them on top of each other. So I try to do it in as simple way as possible. So you have a couple of ways you can do this. My pencil has rolled somewhere, so you could use a pencil. I could take anything with a hard tip, which could be a pencil that has no lead in it anymore, and I am just going to firmly press where I would normally draw, and then you can see here possibly it makes a groove even in this old wood, but I do think it's easier to do when you're on a smooth surface. So like where there's paint, I did not press because that would be like sanding it off, and that's not what I want. I want that chippy to stay on there. So we're going to reline that up. So you can do that, you can do a pencil, or you can do a pen, because I'm going to paint over it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I am not going to mark over the chippy paint. And back when I did this the first time, I would have done it very, very faintly, so that I didn't chip off any paint. So when I was talking about I don't pay attention to where the stencils are, so this on our form has a gap, so I would just come in here and eyeball it to connect the dots so that it becomes a complete line. So now that I have my groove here, I can take the pen or a marker and go right in that groove, or it's easier to see in person, and so I could just paint right like that. I have a couple of thicker brushes, just craft brushes. These were honestly probably from the kid pile, and then whenever I'm out thrifting or picking, and I find little craft brushes like this, I like them because it's fat and it's thick and it's almost perfectly the size that I need for this stencil. So right now I have 2 of these, and then I like to put it on a paper plate. This is just a plastic lid, and I dab it, but I'm kind of brushing as I go so that I don't have big globs of paint. And then I have a pretty steady hand, but even if up close it doesn't look the best, don't worry about it, because it's going to be far away, and especially if it's something that you're going to set outside, either to set outside temporarily just to age, or something to set outside permanently, it's going to just make it look better, okay? So I don't worry too much about being perfect. But you always want to make sure you have enough paint on your brush. I think that that is key. And I have used chalk pen before, and I think that it works fine. And I have used magic marker, which I really actually like the magic marker for things that I'm wanting to do that are very thin and maybe a little bit more intricate and detailed. So pretty much this A is going onto bare wood because all the chippy up here on the top of this board for some reason has chipped off. So normally what I would recommend is that you start top to bottom, because you don't want to come like I already have bottom to top, because then when I'm painting, if N is already painted and I'm painting my A, then I'm probably going to get the palm of my hand in that N and could possibly mess it up. And not even so much about messing it up, but you get that paint on the palm of your hand, and then your palm has wet paint on it, and you lay your palm down in another location, and now a spot that you didn't mean to have paint on has paint on it. So I have made quite a few antique signs like this, coffee signs like this. It's a really easy way to make a sign look aged. I've done quite a few bait and tackle signs like this. And then what you could do, like on this one, after it chips off and looks really aged and old, and the black paint also looks old after being outside, then you could come back and seal it. And remember, if you're sealing over something white, you want to use polyacrylic, and I talk about this on my blog. But if you use just polyurethane, the white or anything painted, painted light colors is going to yellow after time. And you don't want that to happen. It doesn't bother some people. It bothers me a little bit. I did do it sadly on some doors in my house around my laundry room area, mudroom area, because I was like, oh, it'll be years before they yellow. I bet you it was less than 6 months before they yellowed. So I'm going to do one more letter with you here, the T, and then I'll have the whole thing done. And I think I just put my elbow in the letter I. But I will let this dry before it sets outside, and if you are in the Iowa area, you know that it's been raining for months, it seems like, and it's going to rain all week. And that's good for my truck that has all the flowers in it, but it's very depressing. I don't know if you guys are like that, but I am depressed when there's no sunshine and I can't work without feeling like I need to bundle up. And I turned our heat back on yesterday. I just couldn't take being cold anymore. So normally I would work in a different direction. I always like to go down and have the edge of my brush do my straight lines, but got the tripod set up in the way. So I'm going to stand up and flip around here to do the end of the T. Okay, so I'm going to just show you, or attempt to show you, the rest of it. And then down here, like there's a piece right here on this S that's gonna chip away a huge chunk, and then that will not be painted anymore, but it'll totally look aged then. So that's how I do my signs.